Elaine Benes, like her fellow Seinfeld characters, had a large variety of relationships through the 9 years the show Seinfeld lasted. And one of my favorite scenes that shows their attitude towards dating is in this first episode with Jake Jarmel, when Elaine is telling them how she met a new guy, and then we hear this conversation between she and George.
Yeah, I like him. Definitely like him. I like him a lot.
So what's wrong with him?
Nothing, and I've looked.
Well, I'm sure you'll find something.
And I call this Seinfeld syndrome, when someone is always finding something wrong with the person they are dating, and therefore they can't hold down a relationship because they nitpick and they make a huge deal out of small things. Which relates to today's video, because I am talking about Jake Jarmel. So to begin at the beginning, I love their meet cute, as Elaine describes it to Jerry and George. And as she is describing what she is wearing, I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus's line delivery right here.
So I was sitting on the reception desk. I was looking pretty hot. I was wearing my slingback pumps.
What are those?
Ask your mother. You live with her now, don't you? Anyway.
But in some ways, I kind of view Jake Jarmel as the one that got away for Elaine. Now, granted, they try their relationship multiple times and it never seems to work. But if Elaine fundamentally changed some things about her personality, I think they could have had potential to be a good match. One reason they make kind of a good match is that they are in parallel careers, because she is an editor and he is a writer. And yet that also comes into play in this argument I will be talking about. So in some ways, maybe their similar career fields also hurt them more than help them. But let's get into this argument. So Elaine comes home and Jake is there. He has not only cleaned up around the house, but he is even making her dinner.
You have cleaned up the whole apartment and you're making dinner. You're perfect. You're a perfect man.
But this is just the calm before the storm, because then she asks him for her messages, which he has written down for her, and she reads that one of her friends had a baby, and Elaine is ecstatic about this. But she starts to express concern about this message. However, she then backtracks and decides not to say anything. However, Jake asks her in a lighthearted way, what's wrong?
No, it's nothing.
Yeah, what is it?
It's nothing.
Tell me.
Well, I was just curious why you didn't use an exclamation point.
And now if he hadn't pushed her to express what she was thinking, maybe it would have been fine. But Elaine was also being passive-aggressive, you could say, because she is clearly expressing distaste just enough to get his attention, but then she makes him ask her what was wrong, and she makes him push her, you could say. So it comes back on him, making it seem like he started the argument. And so right off the bat, I kind of feel like Elaine is trying to start something, but she does it in a way where she can be seen as the innocent one and that Jake is the one that started it. I don't think she is consciously doing this, but I think she subconsciously will act this way in multiple instances. But after he pushes her to know what's wrong, she then tells him that it was curious he didn't use an exclamation point on the message, considering it is such good news. After saying this, though, she again acts like it's no big deal, and she even starts to walk away, showing that she is done discussing this. But Jake continues the thread, though, wanting to further know, what is so curious? Why did she feel the need for an exclamation point? However, at this point, it's not serious, though. He still says this in a lighthearted way. And Elaine goes on to say,
If one of your close friends had a baby and I left you a message about it, I would use an exclamation point.
And this right here is a huge no-no, just for life in general. We often say about other people well, if it was me, I would have done this or I would have done that. But why do we do this? That other person isn't you, so who cares what you would have done in the situation, because it's not about you, it's about them. And oftentimes we feel like people should be acting the same way we would act. But why? We think that the way we would handle things is the correct way, so why isn't everybody else doing it this way too? And so in general, it's good to catch yourself when you find yourself thinking this way, because other people are not you, and that's a good thing, and it's good that they don't handle things the same way you do. And this also comes about when we want people to act in a way that we approve of, right? And it's no big life secret that people do their own thing, right? Nobody is going to act in a way that you approve of, so you might as well accept it and be okay with it, right? It's good that people are your own unique beings not doing everything that we think is right. And so rather than accept that he chose to do something different, she instead pushes what she would have done on him. But then Jake's response here, as of right now, it's still not like an argument, but Jake's response is what really turns the tide. You can see the moment Elaine shifts, because rather than validate Elaine's opinion or even, agreeing to disagree in a sense, he instead has a sarcastic, albeit playful response.
Well, maybe I don't use my exclamation points as haphazardly as you do.
And now this just sets Elaine off. Not only does he not act in a way she approves of by not using the exclamation point, but now he is teasing her and making it seem like her way of doing things is wrong. And don't forget that she is an editor, so maybe deep down this also strikes a chord because maybe she feels like he is implying that she is bad at her job. And so now she is yelling, saying that he should have been more excited, like it's her friend. Again, she's making it all about her, and then he makes a very writer-esque remark.
I didn't know that I was required to capture the mood of each caller.
And then Elaine just really goes off on how he should be using exclamation points more often, and the argument ends when he uses metaphorical exclamation marks to voice that he is leaving.
Well, you can put one on this one. I'm leaving!
So I think we can all agree that for the most part, Elaine is to blame for this breakup. Again, she wants him to act how she wants him to act, how she thinks is right. And she, along with Jerry and George, they're all a bit of a narcissist and they expect others to cater to what they want. And then again, she also started this out in a very passive-aggressive way, making it hard for Jake not to let it go to begin with. Like she piqued his curiosity and made him be the one to get things started. But Jake isn't free of blame either. Once we heard how much this meant to her, he could have backed down and been like, yeah, I see what you mean. It is exciting news. And it did warrant an exclamation point. Or rather than his line about not liking exclamation points, he could have de-escalated things by being like, oh, I guess as a writer, we often are told to limit our use of exclamation points. And so that just has carried over into normal life. Or when she's getting upset, he could have said in a level-headed way, I'm sorry you're so upset by this. I truly didn't mean anything bad by not using an exclamation point, but I can see how important this is to you, so I'll keep it in mind going forward. Although, to be honest, some of those replies he could have done, it feels like they are things a person says to appease a mentally unbalanced person, which honestly Elaine kind of can be sometimes. And so by appeasing her, by apologizing, like it might just feed the monster and make her think that she can keep blowing things out of proportion again and again until he finally is almost beaten into submission to do the things she wants him to do in order to prevent her from having these blow-ups, And then I feel like, as we see in later episodes, I don't think Elaine wants to be with someone who is her intellectual equal. I think she thinks she does, but in reality, she doesn't like it. She doesn't want to be with someone who calls her on her bullcrap. Her longest relationship is with Putty. And while he isn't submissive, he also is just kind of too dumb. And so even when they get in arguments, he just comes off as too dumb. And so he isn't someone who truly challenges her.
So you're disappointed he's a spiritual person?
Well, yeah, I got him because he seems so one-dimensional. I feel misled.
She sees herself as above Putty, and that's what gives her a sense of security in the relationship. A man like Jake, I think, is too confident and smart, and that is why it doesn't work out. At least one of the reasons. But they do get back together later, but he ends things with her that time too because she stopped to get some snacks at the movie theater before going to see him in the hospital. And in this case, roles are reversed, and now he is upset at her for not being more like him because he says, if I got the phone call about you in the hospital, I wouldn't have stopped to get the juji fruits. And in this instance, I feel like it does make a bit more sense for Jake to be personally hurt by this, more so than Elaine being personally hurt by the exclamation mark. But still, ultimately, I think Elaine and Jake never work out because they are expecting the other to be someone they're not. Elaine is self-centered, so it isn't surprising she got snacks to eat before going to see him. And Jake, he should have known this about her by this time and not been so upset by it. But maybe he just didn't fully know her personality as much as he thought. And the juji fruits are really just what put him over the edge and realized that he cannot be with this woman. So yeah, Jake and Elaine, they never would have been able to work out unless, again, Elaine fundamentally changed who she was, or if Jake changed who he was by being someone who was more willing to bend to Elaine's desires. Or, someone who was willing to have Elaine be the center of the universe, right? Because again, she definitely has some narcissistic tendencies, and so if he fed into that, then maybe it could have worked. It doesn't mean it would have been a healthy relationship. But yeah, Jake Jarmel, he is definitely one of my personal favorites out of the men she dates, and so I do like that he shows up in 3 different episodes. And yeah, I just love their exclamation point argument. I think it's hilarious, and it's also just, again, so fitting as to who they are. Even their occupations come into play. So that is my thoughts on Jake Jarmel and the exclamation point. My thoughts on that argument, and let me know what you think down below in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.
I'm leaving!